Hasta la vista, auf Wiedersehen, and good riddance to many cars from 2019. We have a list for you guys. Whew. RIP cars for 2019.
And this is the top 20 list. A lot of cars have passed away.
Yep, and some of them we're really happy to see go, and some we're kind of sad to see go.
Well, let's start with this one, or actually two cars, in fact. BMW 3 Series GT and the 6 Series GT.
Those were the Gran Turismos. Basically, they were sedans, but they had the long back, which was extremely unattractive.
And the car you see behind us is a 3 Series GT. Of course, there was a slightly larger one, which was a 6 Series. And I didn't quite get the need for this because they also have the X3, X2. They have a lot of X's.
The wagons were so much better looking. They didn't make any sense to me either. So they're gone. Out of here. The 6, that one is being replaced by the 8 Series. So altogether, that's gone as well. And yeah, good riddance. Let's move on.
Next on our list is a car that's apparently in Florida right now.
Or it should be.
This is the Buick Cascada. Did I say it correctly?
I think you did.
Okay.
And this is the only convertible that Buick did have available in the United States. And it was actually one of the least expensive luxury convertibles available in the United States as well. Roman likes these quite a bit, and he looks good in them because he has hair. And unfortunately, slow year-to-date sales. They sold 2,500 through September of 2019. That's not enough.
And I was pretty serious about Florida because Roman actually went to the Keys and he test drove it when it actually first came out, and I'm set to see it go.
All right, for all you Europeans who know your Opels, where is the Cascada built? You guess? It's Poland.
Because you know me, I love my Solera Toyota convertible.
Yeah.
So
it was a nice riding car, and actually, I got to give Buick a lot of props with this car. They tried something that nobody else was succeeding in, and well, they didn't succeed either.
Boy, well, speaking of Buick, they have several cars actually on this list.
Basically, if it has a trunk, Buick is getting rid of it in the United States.
Oh man, Buick Lacrosse. It's their big sedan. It's a traditional sedan that they've had for some time.
Right.
And it's gone. Slow sales once again was the Achilles heel. Achilles heel?
They sold 1,400 through September of 2019.
Not a lot at all. Oh my goodness.
It's not, and it's another indicator showing that Americans are not buying as many sedans as they used to. 2016, if you take the entire year and combine the sales of this vehicle, combined, it's less than 1 month for the Chevy Silverado. And it's also a real shame because I agree, and Buick's known for sedans, but this one's gone. The next one, this one hurts even more.
Oh, this is sad. This is very sad.
Because it's the Buick Regal, and there's several different versions of the Buick Regal, including this one, which is the Tour X.
Yes, and this is basically what, remember those Audi Allroads, the A6 based cars? This is kind of reminded me of that. It's a big, long, very comfortable car. And remember, you and I think, tested this a while ago, maybe a couple years ago.
It looks good. I think it looks great. Now, I know it's subjective, but if you look at station wagons in general, the new ones that are coming out, I think they're long and graceful looking and a lot easier on the eye than a majority of the crossovers and SUVs that are out there.
And it has a ton of space. Why is it gone? Well, because the crossovers are in, right?
Right.
They have the Encore, they have the new Encore GX, the Envision, the Enclave, a lot of E crossovers.
The thing is that this is another vehicle that's on an older platform and they're not renewing it. And get yours while you can. I still think that the bargains available on the Tour X are excellent. And if I could, I would buy one as well. Let's move on to yet another General Motors brand, Cadillac
CTS Sedan. This is kind of their mid-grade sedan, mid-size, and it was a very, kind of traditional, powerful rear-wheel drive platform, but they're replacing it with a couple of cars, actually, right?
Yeah, they are, and this has been a fleet sale car. It's been one that just hasn't exactly been setting the world on fire in terms of tech or anything else, and that's because it's being replaced by a lot of new cars.
Like the CT4 and the CT5 Cadillac is now introducing.
It has a unique induction and exhaust. It has a unique supercharged cover. accessory drive, and it's a wet sump engine, so that the oil pan is integral to the vehicle, and all cooling and lubrication is through the oil pan, so it's not a dry sump package.
Speaking of Cadillac, the next one is the XTS.
Yeah, this is an older design.
Yeah.
You know, but refreshed a little bit. It was mostly kind of a livery car, a fleet car, right?
Right. That's another one that just didn't quite set the world on fire, but I did like their redesign. I thought it was different. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to really maintain good sales.
Not enough sales. Yeah,
Nope.
That's
Now,
not a GM vehicle.
This one's a little tough, especially this one and what it's related to, and that's the Chevy Cruze. The Chevy Cruze was, for a while, a fairly popular car in its class, but even with the advent of a hatchback, Chevy was never able to really make those sales burn, and because of that, it is going away.
I always thought the Chevy Cruze was actually very competitive. They redesigned it several times. There was a turbo diesel version. There was a hatchback. There was a sedan. I'm sad to see this go.
I am too, and it was a really good model for GM to put out there.
Chevy also says a 0 to 60 time in 7.7 seconds, which is actually very good. So let's give it a little bit of the beans and find out what that means. So there is a little bit of turbo lag, but once it spools up, you know, there is a nice rush of power.
Now let's move on to one that's very difficult because it doesn't just affect the fact that the car is going away, but also a lot of people lost their jobs when it went away, and that's the Chevy Volt.
Yeah, and it's the case with a lot of these cars that are going away as well. The Volt, they redesigned it just recently.
They did.
Like within the last 3 years.
And it is a pretty good car. They put a lot of tech into it. There's billions of dollars worth of development into this car, and unfortunately, it just wasn't a hot seller.
Moving on to Fiat, and Fiat is discontinuing the 500 and 500e, which is their electric model.
Right. Now, the 500 was one of the first Fiats to make a comeback to the United States. Ironically, it's also one of their more reliable ones. But unfortunately, small cars are not selling in the United States right now. Fiat has not updated this car very much, other than changing the packaging and recently, somewhat recently, changing some engine things around, but for the most part, it's the same car.
But look at this one, it's so cute, it's a convertible, and you just want to put it in your pocket. And
they are really cute, and it's a real shame they're going away, and especially because they don't have a replacement, but they're still selling the Fiat 500L, which makes no sense whatsoever. Let's move on to another car that I'm sad to see go, the Ford Fiesta.
Yeah, we actually owned an ST, and we did a whole video series around it. It was such an amazing car. The ST had a little turbocharged engine, about 200 horsepower, but now for United States it's going away.
Yeah.
I think it's available in other markets as well, like Europe.
And some of these other cars are as well.
Yeah, and it's just a good car, really good handling car, just small and nimble.
It's time to find out whether the car we got is hot or not. Are you ready to take it around the track?
Let's do it. Turn-in is really nice, and again, it's a front-wheel drive car with an open differential, but when you do the suspension right, it doesn't really matter. The car points so well and puts power down well. Has enough suspension travel, so we got a nice bit of droop travel in the front. And there it turns in with this beautiful neutral little drift that lets me carry lots of speed into the corners.
Yeah, unfortunately, one issue the car had is it was not as utilitarian as some of the competitors, and the regular Fiesta did have some serious transmission issues that Ford didn't really do a good job with.
And a lot of them were kind of fleet rental cars, too. They did sell quite a few of them in 2019, but it was just not moving the needle for them.
Speaking of what doesn't move the needle, the Ford Flex is going away.
What?
Huzzah! That is a vehicle that I honestly, at first I thought it was a little interesting, but look at it this way. It was basically a Ford Explorer for as much money, but without the ground clearance and without the room. You were paying for a car that was slab-sided that looked kind of interesting, but really, all the utility was sort of thrown out the window for the sake of the way it looked.
Wait, what? Well, that's great.
No, it's
Look,
not.
it's a boxy. You could put a refrigerator in the back, you know, on its side. It's so roomy.
Not that as roomy as it should be.
Slab-sided and
That's
cool.
Not cool.
No?
Nope, and it's going away.
Nathan, I am dying to know, how fast was that?
0 to 60, high altitude in this car, 9.5 seconds.
Oh man, 9.5, even at a mile above sea level, that's pretty slow.
Oh, it's about the same as the Mazda.
Whoa, whoa, dude! Was that why? Did you have Andre in the car with you? Andre, were you in the car?
He wasn't in the car.
Нет, я не был. Нет. You sure didn't fall asleep back there? Тут удобно, удобно.
Part of the reason, by the way, is because they have a whole new platform that they're using for the new Explorer, and that platform means that all the other cars that were based on it is going away. That includes the Ford Taurus, which is obviously gone.
It's on our list. It's next. The Ford Taurus is gone.
At first, the Ford Taurus was such a really cool car, and they had all of these different high-performance versions of it, and there were some flops, and there were some really cool versions and everything else, but the most recent version of the Ford Taurus just didn't quite do it. And honestly, for its size, its interior always felt too small.
Yeah, and like you said, they replaced the Explorer with a rear-wheel drive platform, and the crossover world is changing.
Right.
And the Taurus didn't really need to exist. And the Fusion is still around. They're still going to build the Fusion for now, but the Taurus is gone.
Yeah, pretty much Ford stopping on all car production except for the Mustang in the very near future. Next car on this list is the Infiniti Qx30. Now this is interesting because this car is being completely removed, yet it's fairly recent. This is a relatively new vehicle and one that we felt was actually kind of good looking.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look how sexy it looks. It shared the platform with the Mercedes, correct?
Yep, the GLA.
Yeah. And just look how sexy that is, and just was here, what, a couple years, 3 years?
Something like that. And here's the problem with the vehicle, of course, is that the interior was far too tight. And people who bought it, I mean, you could get a Mazda CX-3 for nearly half the price and you'd have the same size interior. The thing is that this vehicle, even though it did have components related to the GLA, wasn't quite up to the same level as the GLA. And right now, Infiniti's having a really tough time in the United States, and they're having a hard time with their direction, so to speak. So this might be the first casualty of many in the future.
Tell me about how this is different from the GLA, which it shares obviously a chassis and DNA and a drivetrain.
Well, so the first thing is when you look at it, you can tell it's a very beautiful vehicle. And we have the kind of Infiniti signature styling elements. So the double arched front grille, the front headlamp.
Yeah, they only sold 3,000 of them through September. Yeah, that's not enough.
No, it's not. Let's move on, though.
Oh, I'm sad, really.
Yeah, the Jaguar Xj, or the Jaguar Xj.
Dude, whenever I see this car and the way how long it looks, it actually is a big car.
It's a big car.
But the design of it just makes it look incredibly like a limousine. And every time I was either driving it, I was, saw it on the road, it just had that British character to it that I always loved.
I felt special when I drove one of those. I really did enjoy them. Unfortunately, nobody's buying them. And at the same time, even though the car is going away, it's the last of the gas engine versions of this car, there are indications that the XJ may return as an electric vehicle in the near future. So we'll see about that.
That might make sense, especially if it looks as good as this, just, next iteration of that.
Right.
And with electric power, why not?
Overall, on the TFL scale of buy it, lease it, rent it, or forget it, that's easy. I'm gonna give it a buy it. I like this car so much. I just wish I had $87,000 burning a hole in my pocket, because if I did, and I wanted a big luxury sedan, I'd give it some serious thought. See you guys next time.
Yeah, it had a lot of presence. A vehicle that didn't have a whole lot of presence, but at least it has a cool cousin to replace it. The Lincoln MKC, that's going away. And it's being replaced by the Lincoln Corsair. Now, here's the good news about that. We are talking about even a more advanced vehicle with a nicer interior that's replacing it. Basically, Lincoln is finally ditching all these ridiculous alphanumeric, names
and replacing it with
proper names, old names. They're bringing back great names and doing some new ones as well. And
Didn't you see the Corsair at the Los Angeles Auto Show?
I did. I saw the plug-in hybrid version of it.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. And now they're also going to have the coupe version. And Roman test drove this MKC. I remember, that event and that video.
How does the Lincoln MKC drive? Yes! All right. It's not a sports car, and let's face it, the people who are buying this aren't going to be taking it to the racetrack. So, in a word, fine. Everything about this car is right down the middle, including the way that the steering feels, it's a little bit light, including the way that the engine sounds, it's a little bit quiet. Yep, that's floored.
And of course, now you guys saw the new one. So I think that's good news. I mean, they're
it's for the
updating
most
it.
part, it's good news. Lincoln is actually showing some strength where I didn't expect them to do so. So good for them on that. But a Lincoln that is going away, thank goodness, because it's one of my least favorite cars they've ever designed, and that's the Lincoln MKT. Basically, it's a Ford Flex with a fancy, I guess you could say, fancy wrapper and a nicer interior. But it is, to my mind, one of the least attractive Lincolns built. And one of the reasons why is because they just over-exaggerated a lot of the components on it, and very few people would say it was handsome.
Yeah, they actually, I think they went outside the box with this.
Literally. This is the nicest image I could find on this car, the nicest looking image.
I agree with you. The design didn't make sense, and now the platform has changed. And you know, they have the Aviator, which is amazing looking now.
Oh,
and
so nice.
And it's their mid-size crossover that's based on the Explorer.
Far better than this.
Yes.
In the light of day, the design of the MKT is somewhat, shall we say, quirky. You recall those old-time locomotive designs? Well, the back end of the MKT seems somewhat familiar.
Next vehicle on this list, and it's the whole brand, is leaving the United States, and that is the Smart. The Smart Fortwo is out of here.
And also the electric Smart. They also had an electric version of it, and only 605 of them were sold through September of 2019. That's not enough to sustain a whole company or its whole brand.
No, now remember that initially the whole Smart thing was a pair-up between the Swatch watch company and Mercedes-Benz, and it's changed over the years. Unfortunately, here in the United States, they've never managed to do a proper foothold in this market. And the reason why? Not a great car, not at all. As a matter of fact, we have a really good quote from Car and Driver. We rarely quote them, but they say the Smart Fortwo and the electric EQ are terrible rabbit turds that only masochists and fools bought. That is a hell of a quote.
That's from Car and Driver.
Yes, not us. Car and Driver.
Wow. You know what? I've never actually had the pleasure or the displeasure of driving a Fortwo.
They're not very good.
I don't know. I mean, initially the idea sounded good to me. You know, in a big city, you could park anywhere you want.
Yeah, in Manhattan, it would make total sense.
But they were just not efficient enough, right? If I look at this car and it's as big as an 8-foot square, I would expect it to get 100 mpg, right?
Right.
But it was only like 34 or 35 or something like that.
And it had a wonky clutch, and the EV was okay. Roman said the EV was the best version of it, but I've driven a few of them and I've never been particularly impressed.
Under the hood of this electric car, well, it's basically nothing. It's where you put in your windshield wiper fluid, because this is an electric car. There is a 17.6 kilowatt-hour battery that sits under the back seats. It also has an 80 horsepower motor that puts out 118 pound-foot of torque, and the range is about, well, 70 to 80 miles between charge-ups.
Let's move on to one that I'm actually a little surprised is going, but at the same time, it makes sense, and that is the Toyota Prius C.
I'm a little sad. I mean, the Prius C has been around for many, many years, and they didn't change it much. I mean, it's kind of remained almost identical, and it's really popular in Japan, and they just kind of brought this car here, right?
That's right. They wanted an entry-level Prius to put into our market so people could actually afford them, and it was great at first. They sold a ton of them at first. If you go to the East Bay in San Francisco, you will see a lot of them running around, and that's rightfully so. They got great mileage. They're decent little cars, nothing too terribly special. Unfortunately, they haven't updated them very much, and the year-to-date sales have equaled 323.
Yeah, that's ouch. But you know what else? Now Toyota has the Corolla hybrid, right? They have updated their Prius lineup.
Oh, big time.
I think they focused on other vehicles, and this was one of those vehicles that they kind of stopped investing into, and just kind of removed it from the United States market, basically.
What's incredible is that this car was designed using Formula One technology. There are these little winglets right here on the side of the taillight that are meant to create less drag, in effect creating vortexes which let the car cut through the air in a much cleaner way.
You know what? For once he's right. This is actually made to make the car more aerodynamic. Now another one that's going away, which this one I'm a little sad to see go because it's the end of an era, and I think that they just missed an opportunity to make an even better car, and that's the Volkswagen Beetle.
Oh my jeez.
That's an awesome shot, by the way, of Roman.
That's Roman.
That is him at his happiest in snow in a convertible, driving the Dune version of the Volkswagen Beetle, because that is what makes him happy.
Now the Beetle completely gone from our market.
That is correct. And you know, it's one of those things where it's a shame because they really had some interesting ideas when they had the new Beetle, this one, and they never quite followed it up with having enough versions of that car to be truly competitive with vehicles like the Mini in terms of just appealing to a wider audience.
And the Mini is still around. I mean, they're still pushing that.
Yeah, so it is a shame. And there's no word on whether or not they're going to replace it with another new Beetle. We'll see.
Volkswagen says this Beetle Dune was inspired by the legendary Baja Bug. And if you're into Baja racing, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But you know what? Let me show you. I can't imagine 500 or 1,000 miles of it.
And another VW on our list, this is another really sad one.
This one's really tough.
Volkswagen Golf, Sportwagen, and Alltrack. And, you know, they had a 4Motion Sportwagen, they had an Alltrack that was a little bit taller, right? A little bit more rugged. And they were just great cars. And, utility is good, good power, and even good affordability. Yeah,
great gas mileage, they were comfortable. I really liked the car. Had I been able to buy one that was one more year used, I probably would have for my wife. I liked it that much. And I felt that it was a worthy competitor to anything Subaru built. So it's an unfortunate loss for us.
So I'm on this kind of loose gravel dirt trail. And so far, the car is doing okay, except of course for this annoying beep, which I can mute right there, which is using the proximity controls to show me where I'm about to hit something. And there are trees and rocks and all kinds of stuff that I could potentially hit here.
Yeah, only 8,300 of them were sold through September of this year. And VW is moving in another direction, right?
Right.
VW is starting to, go more electric, more crossover. They're focused on the Tiguan and the Atlas. So that's kind of where they're going.
That is correct. So that's our main list, but we have some honorable mentions that we want to throw out there for you guys, and that is the front engine version of the Corvette, the C7.
Yeah, it's being replaced by the C8, the all-new version, the mid-engine.
So a lot of people out there are upset about the fact that the old formula from day one of the Corvette, which was a front engine, rear drive car with a human being in between, is gone. It's now going to be a mid-engine supercar style vehicle. And for some people, I can totally understand that feeling because it's a very different type of car once you develop it that way.
And I don't think it's necessarily good or bad. It's just nostalgic, right? It's been around for, what, 6 decades or more. And now we're changing the book, basically, taking the old book aside with the front engine model and now switching to the C8, which is a mid-engine design.
Well, you used to be able to link one generation to the other, and now there's sort of this stop after the C7 and then this whole new thing with the C8. So I don't know, see what happens.
And I remember when Roman and Tommy went to the debut event of the C8.
0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. Of course, the C7 has those iconic 4 exhaust pipes coming off the center, and this, of course, is a big change because now you got 2 on either side.
Well, part of our goal
was that on purpose?
Oh yeah. Well, some of it's packaging, but we had a lot of discussion around that. It is function driven, but again, from a design perspective, our intention was to drive as much differentiation as possible. But still, when you stand back and look at it, it says Corvette. That's key.
The final one on our list is actually something that's right up Andre's alley, and that's because it's a truck.
Yes, this one was at a Texas event a year or 2 ago, and Nissan is discontinuing their diesel engine in their Nissan Titan Xd.
That's right.
The Titan Xd is being redesigned for 2020. It's getting a few updates, and it's getting their latest 9-speed automatic with a gas V8 engine, but no more Cummins. The 5-liter is gone.
And so it goes. They weren't selling very many of them, and right now, the half-ton trucks that are out there with diesel engines, there's now 3 of them, have equal, if not better, performance in many ways. So
yeah, efficiency especially.
Especially efficiency.
Yeah, so this Titan is our honorable mention.
I'm gonna try to go up this very steep hill in this diesel 5-liter. It has a lot of torque. I'm seeing sky only sky.
And I hope we don't have to do a lot more of these in the next year because I don't like talking about really cool cars that go away.
I like talking about cars that I dislike going away. So once again, Some cars made us happy and some cars made us sad. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. Don't forget to add below what vehicles you think perhaps shouldn't go away or perhaps really should go away. And we hope you guys have a happy 2020.
Yes, and go back, of course, to tflcar.com for news, views, and real-world car reviews.